Go ahead, Vicky.
Hi, my name is Vicki Davidson, and I am in Missouri. I have spent a number of years, it's been about 20 years now, in addressing emergency preparedness for people with developmental disabilities. I'm the former director of the Missouri Developmental Disabilities Council, but I also have experience working at the Missouri Center for Emergency Response and Terrorism, where I ran the Emergency Operations Center for the Department of Health in Missouri. And I am also a parent of a young woman who experiences autism. And she and I also do training for crisis intervention teams, police officers, sheriff's deputies, and she shares her experience as an individual with autism. And today we're going to talk about Preparedness Begins with You. There are so many disasters across the United States that it's really important for people with disabilities to have the tools that they need to stay safe and also to be able to recover if they are impacted by disasters. And here are some disasters that have actually occurred in North Dakota. There is flooding up in the top corners and the center, flooding in Minot, North Dakota. Also, North Dakota is known as the oil spill state with the pipelines that you have. And there are times when those pipelines do have spills and catch on fire. And those are long-term fire hazards as well. And just last year in 2025, there was an EF5 tornado in Enderlin, North Dakota. Uh, Fortunately, only 3 people were killed. That's tragic as well. Uh, any death is very tragic. But this tornado happened in an area that was not as populated as other tornadoes have been. This was the first EF5 tornado listed in about 10 years, and the previous tornado was in Joplin, Missouri, and that happened in May of 2011, and that's when I worked at the Center for Emergency Response and Terrorism. And unfortunately, that EF5 tornado killed 162 people. And following that tornado, it was such a catastrophic event. It impacted a local hospital, and people were so traumatized by that tornado that there were a number of suicides that occurred after that tornado. The other disaster that can be experienced in North Dakota are blizzards. And this photo in the center bottom picture is a blizzard that occurred in 1997. As I was researching North Dakota disasters, I saw so many pictures where the snow was just piled feet high, and that would shut down a lot of area. And it's really important for people to have preparedness plans in place. So if they need to shelter in place, that they're able to do so safely. And the last photo that I have is from a train derailment that closed a highway in Hatton, North Dakota, a number of years ago. When we look at potential disasters in North Dakota, you have floods, tornadoes, ice and snowstorms, severe heat and cold, power outages, earthquakes, chemical spills, train crashes, such as what happened with the EF5 tornado in Enderlin when it derailed a train, and also the other train derailment that I showed you. Fires, house fires are the #1 disaster that impacts families. Terrorism, potential terrorism, and of course, we have had the pandemic flu. When I started with the Center for Emergency Response and Terrorism, we were responding to a flu pandemic. And also the COVID virus really impacted people across the country. When we look at whose responsibility it is to be prepared for disasters, it's every single American's civic duty to be prepared for emergencies. And planning and preparation are critical. I've been at conferences that where the majority of the audience have been emergency managers, and when asked who is prepared for emergencies personally for their families, years ago it was only about 20% raised their hand. And it really is important that people see that preparation is really key. And also first responders to disasters really are individual citizens. When we look at the first responders that we're familiar with, like police officers, emergency medical technicians, police officers, fire, EMS, there is only 1% of the population are employed in those first responding positions. And they have to respond to the other 99% of the population. And I believe that this statistic probably still holds. It's a statistic that was provided at one of the emergency management conferences that I had attended a number of years ago. But it really demonstrates how important it is for people to be prepared so that 1% of first responders can respond to the people who really need it and who become very vulnerable and injured in their communities, so that they can address those needs, and people who are prepared can help support themselves as much as possible, and also help respond to their neighbors and friends in their areas as well, and help out until responders are able to get there. When we look at what you can do to be prepared, the first thing to do is to get informed. Know what disasters happen in your area, know who are in your area that could help respond to disasters, making a plan that includes your personal support network, assembling kits, not only a go bag if you have to evacuate, but also a kit for your home as well. It's important to practice with your network and team and maintain that plan and your kit as well. You can learn about different disasters by contacting your local offices and learning what disasters are likely to occur in your area. Emergency management, they have mitigation reports. And if you go to the emergency management page for your state, they do have a mitigation report on their page. And that mitigation report talks about the different disasters that happen in each jurisdiction of your state. And you can look up your jurisdiction and review and see what disasters are likely to occur. You can also contact your American Red Cross organization, your community emergency response team. Sometimes they call those citizen emergency response teams, and other emergency responders in your area. That is how you can really learn what's going on in your state. In our state, I read the mitigation report a number of years ago. It was almost 400 pages long, but it went into depth about a catastrophic disaster, the earthquake. We have a New Madrid fault that the emergency management in our state is constantly exercising to address, because that would be another catastrophic event in Missouri. It will affect 8 different states, and those 8 states will be competing for resources. So again, it's really important for each state and each individual to be as prepared as possible for their disasters in their hometowns. Also getting informed are looking at your friends and neighbors, looking at reputable agencies. Sometimes when disasters occur, there are people who become predatory but it's important that you seek reputable agencies that have good information. Those could be your physicians, Smart 911 or Reverse 911. We also have 211 across the nation, and you have 211 in North Dakota as well. That is an organization that really provides a lot of health resources for different communities. You can call up 211 if you're needing some resources related to health. But in Missouri, especially, 211 addresses disasters as well. They're at the table at the State Emergency Operations Center, what they call the SEOC, and they take a listing of people who are interested in volunteering for disasters, people who are willing to fill sandbags, people who are willing to provide food, or organizations usually provide the food, and other resources. And that is a good agency to help get information as well. Newspapers, if there are still some newspapers that provide information, internet and blogs and social media, but again, be careful that you're looking at reputable resources so that you get good information. Another way of getting informed, there are a number of apps across the nation, and the Red Cross has a number of apps as well. And the penguin down at the bottom is for a children's app and children's information on being prepared. So they've really provided like coloring books and other information in easy to understand ways for children so that they would understand disasters without being frightened about the importance of being prepared. Earthquake, pet first aid, flooding. They also have a shelter app. So if somebody has to evacuate and they are looking at potential shelters, you're able to look up shelters if they're Red Cross shelters through their sheltering app as well. And again, there are a ton of apps out there. FEMA has had apps. The North Carolina Developmental Disabilities Council developed an app for families to have preparedness information. So there are all types of resources available out there for you to look at. It's important to know the effects on you and your community as well. If there's a disaster, do you have gas in your home? If something happens and your home is damaged, do you know how to turn off the gas? Do you know who to call if you need them to check your gas? What about the water main break or water mains? Do you know how to turn off your water? Groceries. Do you know where you can get groceries and medical supplies and medications? If there is a disaster, sometimes grocery stores are impacted and the health departments will not allow those grocery stores to sell food unless they inspect them to make sure that the food isn't damaged that could be harmful to people. Medications, do you have your medications on hand? Do you know where to get your medications if you're separated from them? Taking a look at your community environment, do you know how, do you have evacuation routes that you're familiar with? Your home environment? Do you have trees that are really at the verge of falling if there are some heavy winds? Do you need to have those trees removed so that they don't cause debris if you're trying to evacuate your home? Looking at emergency services, support services, and also your support animals, your service animals, understand the impact for your service animals as well. And it's important for you to make a plan that fits your needs. Everybody is different. For my daughter, for instance, she is very sensitive to, all of her senses are very sensitive, but she's very sensitive to noise and tastes and light. So she always has sunglasses. Even on a cloudy day, she'll wear sunglasses. She always carries earbuds so that earplugs so that she can uh, or eliminate some of the background noise so that that doesn't upset her. And she has a number of things that really help her with her kit. And my kit was different. I did wear glasses and had contacts before surgery. So I always made sure to have extra contacts and solution in my kit as well. So make your plan personal to you, what your needs are, and also make your emergency officials, employers, your personal network, make them aware of your plans as well. I had a friend who has since passed away. He would contact his sheriff's department, but also his fire department, and he had them come to his home and walked around his home. And he explained that when he gets help to go to bed at night, his support leaves the home. And if there is a fire, they needed to know where he was so that they could get to him quickly and help him evacuate if needed. So make people that you trust who need to know what your needs are and help walk them through that as well. It's important to maintain a list of important items, such as your prescription information, your correct doses, detailed information about your medication regime, any medications that you have allergies to. And when you fill a prescription, and if you get a different prescription, you can ask your pharmacy for a printout of the medications that you take and also the dosages. So if you have that list and you have to evacuate, but you weren't able to grab your medications, if you're at a Red Cross shelter, for instance, they have memorandums of agreements with pharmacies where they can get the prescription medication to individuals. And that's really especially important for life-saving medication. Have the names and addresses and phone numbers of doctors, therapists, pharmacists, copies of your insurance cards, telehealth information if you have to reach out to physicians through telehealth. Listings of your durable medical equipment and supplies include serial numbers as well. And I've also shared, because of experience in our state, there was someone who lost her wheelchair in a flood in the St. Louis area a number of years ago. And she had a positioning device molded specifically for her, and she was not able to get that positioning device replaced for 2 years. So if you have that information about where the mold was taken and the contact numbers, it should it take 2 years to get that positioning device replaced, because that could really contribute to secondary disabilities, and we really want to avoid that at all possible costs. Also have telephone numbers, addresses of your personal support network, and not just your PCAs, but also your neighbors, close friends, family members, because it's important to have that depth. If you have a personal care assistant who helps you with your daily activities, then if their families are impacted, they may not be able to get to you. So it's really important to have that depth of people who could help you if needed. And service providers' names, telephone numbers. So if you get disconnected from your services, you can have things reinstated or let your service provider know where you might have had to evacuate to, so that the services and supports can be resumed as soon as possible so that there aren't any delays in those services and supports. And I use an example. A friend of mine had an elderly mother And she lived next door to another woman who was elderly. And every morning their houses faced each other and their kitchen windows faced each other. And every morning they would each raise their blinds and kind of wave at each other. And if their blinds weren't raised, that was an indicator that they needed to check on the other person. And my friend's mother had fallen and broken her hip. And because they had worked out that arrangement, her neighbor was able to get help to her right away. Create that support network for wherever you spend a lot of time, whether it's at home, at school, or work. And again, look at that depth of people. Have a minimum of at least 3 people in your personal network that you can call on if you need that help. Have those individuals, if there is a disaster, that they'll give you a call and check and make sure that you're okay. Do you have a number that you can call of somebody who's out of state that all of you know that you can contact, so that if there is something that happens and you aren't able to be reached, but you were able to reach somebody from out of state? Sometimes that is easier to do if there's an impact of phone lines and things like that, that they would contact that individual out of state to know that you're okay, or do they need to get help to you right away. And also provide the training about your needs for those individuals, because nobody knows your needs better than you do. And it's important that people know how they can support you, and also exchange important keys. Uh, my neighbors, I have to get to know my new neighbor, but my previous neighbor had the keys to my home. And whenever I left, I would let her know that I was leaving, and she would always be available if my daughter needed her for something. And so exchange those keys with neighbors that you trust. Make sure that you trust them. And also make sure that that help is reciprocated. So if they need help, then if there's something that you can do to help them, have those things worked out as well, because we all rely on each other when we're recovering from disasters. And it really is important to build those connections or relationships before disasters happen, because that makes a difference and can save people's lives. It really is late in the game if people aren't aware of you or your needs. And it really is important. I can't stress how important it is to develop those relationships. When I started working in the emergency management arena, there were some individuals who thought, well, people who have developmental disabilities, they have people who support them, so they don't need our help. So we aren't going to worry about planning for that population, when that's really a misnomer. People, even if they have developmental disabilities, deserve to live in communities with dignity, and that includes being able to be safe and develop those relationships that keep them safe. And it's important to practice with your network and team as well. One of the things that we said that we would do is make a kit. Include in that kit emergency food, bottled water, non-electric can openers, because we can't guarantee that you'll have electricity available. I have non-electric can openers. I also get cans where you can peel the tab back. Bottled water, when I have that bottled water, when I go to the grocery store, I will get another crate of bottled water, and I'll keep switching it out so that I drink the older water before the newer water, so that you're keeping that water fresh. And do know that if you don't do that, if you get those gallon jugs that they usually use for milk jugs, that water does evaporate. I found that out myself. And camping stores have a lot of freeze-dried food. And there are stores and places online that you can go to get food. I've come across some companies that will say if you buy 72 hours worth of freeze-dried food, we'll give you 72 hours free. And I probably have in the tubs that I have in my basement that are waterproof, I probably have enough food for at least 6 months. And again, camping stores, don't feel like you have to get all of these items all at once when you make your kit. Get a little bit at a time, and because it really can be overwhelming if you feel that you have to get your emergency kit together at once, and it can be costly depending on what you want in your kit. So build it up a little at a time and be sure to switch things out. My daughter loves peanut butter, and whenever I would get a new jar of peanut butter, I would switch out the older jar of peanut butter in the kit so that, again, it's always fresh. And make sure you include essential supplies and medications as well. If you have allergies, make sure you have your EpiPens. If you have asthma, as I do, make sure you have your inhalers in your kit. Make sure that if you have the need for catheters, hearing aid batteries, contact solutions, make sure you develop your kit to your specifications, to what your needs are. And also include comfort items for children as well. If you have to evacuate, sometimes disasters can be really scary for people, and especially children. So if there are some items that they find comfort in, make sure that you include those comfort items for your children as well. Coloring books, weighted blankets. We have a traveling weighted blanket for my daughter in addition to the full-size one that we keep at home. But the traveling weighted blanket that we have for her has a handle on it, and we can just open it up when she needs that. So take a look at what your child, what is important to them, and include those comfort items in your kit as well. And also with your kit, include first aid kit and information on how to use the items that are in the first aid kit. I always say include non-latex bandages. My daughter is allergic to latex, and if we just use latex bandages, that causes rashes for her. And for other people, if you have to help someone, if someone that you encounter needs a bandage, and if they're allergic to latex and you only have a latex bandage, that would be more harmful than not for those individuals. So I just say, as a standard practice, use non-latex bandages. Some people take medications where they are sensitive to the sun, and if you are like that, make sure you include sunscreen, hand sanitizer, the topical ointments that you might be using at home, make sure they're included in your kit, and also include hygiene supplies that you might need. And also include items such as, if you have items that require batteries, include extra batteries like radios to listen to different reports. We have a number of chargers in my house, and not this past week, thank goodness, but 2 weeks before, we spent quite a bit of time in our basement because of tornado warnings and tornado sightings in our area. So we have chargers and make sure that our cell phones are charged, and we tune in to the weather. That allows us to keep up to date so that we know when it's safe to come out of the basement. But it also helps you be able to reach other people if you have the cell phones chargers available, if something does happen to your home, where you can reach out to other people. Some people put walkie-talkies in their kits so that they can connect with their children and make sure that their children are safe. Make sure you have allergy information. If you use a wheelchair, you might want to have gloves, heavy-duty gloves in your kit, because if you have to evacuate, sometimes there's a lot of debris and you don't want to cut your hands up. And duct tape is great for anything. I have like a gurney there that you could make if necessary. You can make slings out of duct tape. That's kind of the overall, I guess, thing that a lot of people have in their kit. Even if there are chemical spills in your area, you could even duct tape plastic over your windows to have that extra seal in your windows as well. They have crank radios available. I had crank radios in my kit, but if you have difficulty with mobility, you would need one with batteries, that's battery operated. Also, make sure that you have cash on hand, because if you have to evacuate and if there's no electricity, you want to be able to have cash to purchase necessary items such as food. And I have the old style telephone there. My father, he did not have electricity for a week, and he was iced in his home when he was still alive. And he contacted me and said, Vicki, I just want to let you know that my cell phone's getting ready to die. We're at home. We can't get out. There's too much ice, but I wanted to let you know that I'm okay and we have enough firewood for the fireplace. So I asked him, do you still have your landline, that old landline that you had? And he said, yes. And I said, why don't you plug that in and try? And he plugged it in. And even though he hadn't had a landline for a number of years, he was able to give me a call and say, I'm able to contact you. So just call the home number if you need help or need to get in touch with me. So that's how we stayed in contact with him. When you make the kit, again, make it to your specifications. What is important to you and what's important to keep you connected to people who are outside of your home as well. And when you do your kits, don't forget about your four-legged family members. Have pet food and water, carrier and leash if you have to evacuate, comfort toys, pet medications. If you evacuate, shelters are going to want to know that you have updated shot records, and understand that in our state, as an example, I am not sure about North Dakota, but in Missouri, we have what's called DART teams, disaster animal rescue teams. And when there are shelters set up in our state, not everywhere, there aren't enough to go around, but if there's a large shelter that's set up somewhere, the DART teams will also come in and set up co-located shelters for pets. And it's important that the shots are updated, because they want to make sure, for instance, distemper could pass from animal to animal. They want to make sure that the shots are updated for your animal, and have veterinary contact information. And of course, if you have cats, have extra kitty litter. Now, service animals are not considered as pets. And I included the kitty there. That's more of a support animal. And service animals are the ones that can stay with the individuals with disabilities. And it's important to include them in your plans as well. And if you have to evacuate and go to a shelter, your service animal can stay with you. And make sure that most shelters will understand that. But service animals are trained and are very well behaved. And I know that there are a lot of people saying that they have service animals, and you can tell pretty quickly that they're not service animals because they're a bit unruly. If if uh, if a service animal is unruly, then the shelter can ask for that service animal to be removed. But generally, that service animal will not be unruly because they provide that service for the individual with a disability. And the service animals that are recognized are dogs as well as miniature horses. And evacuation. Think about if you have to evacuate, where would you go? If possible, find out where your community shelter sites are. And I'll let you know that not every emergency manager will tell you that, because if they give you the address of a shelter and that shelter is damaged by a disaster, say it's flooded or a tornado does a direct hit on that shelter, they don't want people going to those shelters that are destroyed because that would create more harm than good. So there are emergency managers who will not let you know where those shelters are, but they do exercise those shelters. And the Red Cross also exercises those shelters, and they make sure that those shelters are accessible for everyone with and without disabilities. Plan for 2 evacuation routes. If you live close to a river and there would be the potential of a route being flooded, how else would you get away from your home if you needed to evacuate? And also make prior arrangements for accessible transportation, and include your personal care or your family member in those evacuation plans as well. And make your go bag, and it should be easy to carry with the most essential items for you. It should include your medications, your medical information, including your doctor's contact information. We talked a little bit earlier about those lists that you make. My friend here, Gary, he has since passed away. He had a binder with all of that information included, and he's the individual who went to the sheriff's department and the police station and the fire station to get to know those first responders and let them know his personal needs. So he had, again, a binder with all of his information in his go bag. This is a picture that I took. He and I did presentations together for People First groups and also the National SAVE Conference. And he was very serious about his preparation. If he had a communication device, and he made sure that he had batteries for his communication device. He had a portable ramp that he kept in his van, his accessible van, all the time. There, if you have hearing aids, make sure you have batteries, extra eyeglasses or contacts in solution. Again, cash, just in case if you have a debit card, if there's no electricity, you can't use that debit card, but you can still use cash. Sturdy shoes and gloves, hygiene supplies, and supplies for your service animal. And you can make a go bag for your animal as well. Some are licensed in ID tags, but understand if you go to a shelter, they cannot ask you to prove that your animal is a service animal. They'll ask you, does your service animal help you because of your disability, and what task can that service animal provide for you? They cannot, if you don't have a license or ID tags, they cannot separate you from your service animal. Make sure that you have immunization records, medication, veterinary contact information, the extra food, water and bowls, harness or leash, and booties. I don't know if you've seen some of those Instagram funny videos of animals trying on those booties where they look really funny. It's kind of hilarious to watch. But if you practice with those booties, that'll protect the paws of your support animal so that they don't get cut if they have to walk over debris as well. And maintain your plan and kit and exercise your plan. Those are really key things. Again, I told you how I switch out old for the new when I go grocery shopping so that I'm constantly rotating. And it's important to exercise your plan as well. And I included this. I spoke at a national conference in Savannah in 2016. And this was after a large-scale exercise that we did here in Missouri. But Craig Fugate was the FEMA administrator at the time, and he was an excellent keynote for them. And he said something that really stuck with me. And whenever I would attend meetings, I would repeat this: exercise to break the plan. Because there are some emergency managers that have a number of tasks that they do. Some emergency managers are like the fire captain or someone that's just appointed, not specifically to work emergency manager full time, but because some communities don't have that capability, but they're somebody who is tagged, and they'll do exercises to kind of check off the box and say, okay, we did the required exercise, check the box. We did a show me exercise, and I shared earlier how I read the mitigation report about a potential large-scale earthquake that would happen in Missouri, and that picture shows the area that would be impacted. And in Missouri, along the New Madrid Fault, there is a lot of limestone, and that limestone will turn to liquid. They call that liquefaction. And they estimate that there will only be one way to get out of, they call that dip down there at the bottom of the state on the right-hand side, they call that the boot heel. And they estimate that there's only one route that will be available that won't be damaged enough that will help people evacuate all the way across the state. And you see that red dot on the left-hand side of the state, that's Kansas City. Kansas City exercises to set up large-scale complex shelters so that they can address the needs of people who are evacuating that direction, because you can see they're not going to be able to evacuate to the east because that will all be damaged. And that's very close to Memphis. Memphis will be very impacted as well. So when they said that they were going to do a what they call a functional exercise, that means that all the players will kind of go through the motions of what they would do. They set up gas refill stations all the way across the state and water refill stations. They had Highway Patrol and National Guard exercise what they would do. And in Kansas City, where that red dot is, they were talking about setting up the large-scale complex shelters. So I asked them in a meeting, I said, well, are you going to include people with disabilities in these functional exercises? And they said, that's a good idea, which it always is a good idea to do that. So I worked for several months. I did training at our People First chapters and at the statewide People First group. I mentioned it every time I was in a meeting, and told people that that emergency management was interested in including people with disabilities in their exercise, that we needed to show up for those exercises. So when they set up those complex shelters, we had 152 people that we know of that checked in who had disabilities. They checked into those complex shelters, and we learned a lot of things that really did not work very well. And we wouldn't have learned that if people who had those needs did not show up and participate in those disasters. So it really is key to exercise to break the plan, not exercise to check off a box. And know that there are still some emergency managers who will exercise because they do have requirements for some of the grants that they get, and they'll say we exercised and checked off the box, work with them, get to know your emergency managers, and help them have more robust plans in your area. And this is a graphic that I have been using for a number of years. June Isaacson Kales, I served with her on a national committee that was appointed by the HHS secretary a number of years ago. And whenever there were exercises done, they would use employees to participate in those exercises. And you can see the individuals that are closest to us in this graphic, they have on t-shirts where they have the labels, deaf, blind, old, what have you, and the people with disabilities are on the sidelines. Just like that disaster or exercise that we had here in Missouri, where we had 152 people show up, they would not have known that the issues that they had people with disabilities not participated in those exercises. A friend of mine worked in a hospital, and they did exercises as well. You're supposed to do exercises in order to keep up with funding. And the staff participated as residents. And there was one staff member who was using a wheelchair and came across a doorway where they had put debris as part of the exercise. And that man, because he didn't have a disability, he was just using one of the wheelchairs, he stood up, he stepped over the debris that they had staged for the disaster exercise, stepped over it, reached over, picked up the chair, and pulled it over, got back in the chair, and rolled off. And that does not happen in real life. And it really is key that people with disabilities do those exercises. Another friend of mine, she had sons, and her sons' bedrooms were on the second floor. So she got ladders that she had provided, and they kept them under her sons' beds. And she would exercise a fire, a potential fire in their home where they would have to evacuate out of their windows. So they practiced that on a regular basis. They had a place where they would meet if they had to evacuate the home. And she did that for them so that they would know how to use those ladders and escape the home if there was a fire. And I used the example also, it was either Time or Newsweek where I read the story, and this was after 9/11. There, one of the towers, I believe that it was the 80th floor, there was a safety officer who exercised every month people in his floor getting out of the building, going down the stairwell, and evacuating. And he exercised that like clockwork. And everybody on his floor survived. And when they did interviews, they asked, why did you survive when people at lower floors did not? And they talked about the exercises and how when they went through those stairwells, there was a lot of debris and dust and smoke, and they couldn't even see. But their muscle memory, because they had exercised so many times getting out of their building, and so their muscle memory was able to carry them out of the building themselves. It just became automatic to them. So after reading that and hearing my friend who worked in the hospital, that story, I always emphasize, no matter what planning meeting that I'm in, that they include people with disabilities in those exercises so that you can exercise and get to safety as soon as possible. I did a training at one of the schools districts here in Missouri, and parents with children with disabilities came up to me and said that their children did not participate in the exercises, that they always waited until their bus left early to do the exercises, whether it was a tornado drill or a fire drill, what have you. because the safety officers said it would be too chaotic to have people with disabilities, the children with disabilities, participate in those exercises. So I did a training and shared the stories that I just shared with you, and talked about how important it was that everybody exercise. And it's really important for children in schools as well, because if they weren't part of the exercises and there is a real life disaster and they aren't familiar with what's going on, that will cause more chaos than if they would exercise and help people become comfortable in what they need to do to get to safety. We also, for preparedness in our state, we did some pop-up evacuation or immunization events during COVID. And we were gifted with this sensory activation vehicle, a trailer that has items in there for people with sensory needs. And down in the bottom center picture, you'll see a friend of mine who's an emergency manager pulling that sensory trailer into the NFL draft that took place in Kansas City a few years ago. And we did the training. My daughter actually listened in on the training the same time I was taking the training in order to work that sensory activation vehicle, the trailer, during the NFL draft, and she was really impressed with the training. She said that it was very spot on. So that's another way that you can be prepared in your communities as well, maybe talking about getting something similar, but even if you don't get something similar, making sure that your shelters or other areas where people might have to evacuate to have the needs of people with sensory disabilities in mind as well. During that large scale exercise where we had 152 people show up, a friend of mine had her son who had autism, and he became very agitated because it was a very intense situation, very loud, very noisy. And I was able to walk with him to an area where he was able to sit away from all of the noise and sensory input and become more comfortable so that he could go back out and be with other people. It's important that the inclusion of people with disabilities and other access and functional needs, this is a term that you might hear, it took the place of special needs because we really emphasize that people have access and functional needs, that if you look at that, that you can address the needs of people with disabilities and other access and functional needs as well. And that has to occur at all phases of emergency management. And emergency management has different phases that they look at. First is preparedness, which is what we're doing now. You're getting information on how to be prepared. There's response. If there is a disaster that occurs, then the first responders and emergency managers and key personnel will respond to the disaster. Then there's a period of time for recovery, and that recovery could take weeks to months to years. There are still places in Joplin and even places in New Orleans that are still recovering or haven't fully recovered yet. And it's important for those communities to get back to as close as possible to what they were before the disasters. It's important to bring that economy back. And then mitigation, preparedness and mitigation kind of go hand in hand. What types of things can you mitigate against? If we have earthquakes in our state, if we have china cabinets, do we have them tied to the walls so that if there's a large earthquake, they don't tumble over and hurt someone? Or do you have ties for your water heaters or gas heaters in your home so that they don't fall over and create another disaster? So those are all types of things to look at, because it really is important, because planning saves lives, and it it's too late to bring people to the table in the middle of a disaster. It is necessary if there is a disaster and there are people that are not prepared, but it's better if people have the information and the tools ahead of time. And again, get involved. Get involved with your neighbors. I know people with disabilities who have volunteered for American Red Cross. During the 93 floods here in Missouri, I was a Red Cross volunteer. Get involved with your community emergency response teams. They do training on how you can be prepared. They even do training on how you can operate a fire extinguisher if you need it. Habitat for Humanity does a lot of preparation as well. The Humane Society. Find something that is important to you, that you feel comfortable with, that you can volunteer for. I was a volunteer for Lutheran Disaster Response here in Missouri for a number of years. Do map your neighborhood. This is something that I was hoping to get people in Missouri involved with, like the People First chapters, where they develop those relationships with their emergency managers, and they work hand in hand with the emergency managers and get good information from your communities, from your emergency managers, and go door to door in your neighborhoods and get to know your neighbors, find out if there are people with disabilities who might need extra help during a disaster, and get that information in hand for your emergency managers. That also develops that social capital where you get to know your neighbors and everybody looks out more for each other when you know your neighbors. And that is the end of my slideshow.
Thank you so much, Vicki. That was awesome. Our next person up here is Kyle. So go ahead, Kyle, and take it away. Thank you, Vicki.
Sounds good. Can we do a quick mic check? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. So, like that introduction stated, my name is Kyle Erickson. I work as a research associate here at the North Dakota Center for Persons with Disabilities. But my undergrad is in emergency management. So this is kind of my worlds both collide, and which kind of happens every now and then, which I do not hate. So, okay, so we're going to be talking about emergency preparedness, specifically for people with disabilities. First, let's cover over a little bit why this topic matters. First of all, people with disabilities are 2 to 4 times more likely to be injured or die in disasters. The second reason why this topic matters is planning ahead saves lives. Disasters don't affect everyone in the same way. Mobility difference. I'm in a wheelchair. Somebody might be in a walker. Somebody might use a cane. Communication differences. Sign language, verbal, nonverbal. Medical needs. There's a whole gamut of those. And support needs. People need different supports to get around in their community. So, some barriers that people with disabilities face. Transportation is a big one. Communication, medical equipment, caregiver access in times of disaster, and medication access. Example, there's a power outage and the wheelchair battery dies, medical equipment stop, phone stop working, what would you do? Well, we're going to talk about ways to kind of plan for this. So first of all, think about your daily needs. What do you rely on every day to stay safe? Some common daily supports. Any medication you might need, mobility devices, personal care attendants, transportation, and communication devices. What if those supports stop? What is your backup plan? We should plan for mobility needs first. Mobility needs are things like wheelchairs, walkers, prosthetics, and evacuation planning if you use a mobility aid. So, it's important to have a battery charging plan. It's important to know how much your chair weighs, and it's important that you have access to accessible transportation, so if need be, you can get out of an area quickly. Planning for medical needs. It's important to have a medication list and your doctor's contact information written down somewhere, and your medical devices somewhere that are readily available. Medication planning. It's important to keep 14 days of medication on hand at all time. And it's important that you know how to contact your pharmacy in case you need some more in case of emergency. Communication planning. How will you contact people if phones fail? Communication options. You can text, you can email, there's social media, there's 911 texting services, and there's some emergency apps. Phone emergency features. Medical ID. I have a medical ID on my phone, and first responders are trained to look for a person's phone and check for that information. Right along, it's just got my name, my disability, and some of my medical information. Emergency SOS. If you on iPhones, if you press and hold the the volume button and the play button at the same time, it'll go to emergency SOS mode, and I'll call emergency services. And sharing. One way that people could easily find you is if your location sharing is on with a few emergency contacts. It's also important to register for local alerts like weather alerts, community alerts, emergency notifications. You can get weather alerts through FEMA or some other weather apps, and then emergency notifications. Check your county's emergency manager website for different resources on that. Let's talk emergency contacts next. Have at least three trusted people who can help. These can be your friends, your neighbors, your family, or your coworkers. And it's important to teach your support network with the equipment that you need. Show them how to help with your equipment. And share your other emergency contacts. Evacuation planning. How will you leave your home? Always plan 2 ways out. Have accessible transportation planned. And let's go back to two escape routes. I should mention here that it's important to have two of them in case that for some reason the other one doesn't work out. You always have a backup plan. Accessible transportation. Who can drive you? Paratransit is good if it's running, and in times of disaster, that service might be spotty. So it's important not to rely wholly on paratransit. And friends or family. Service animals. Vicky mentioned them earlier. You want to have them planned for too. It's important to have food and water, medical care, and emergency supplies all figured out for your service animals. Emergency go bag. This is probably the most important thing I'm going to talk about today. So, since COVID, I got in the habit of having an emergency go bag by my door 24/7 in case I have to leave town at a moment's notice. I have things like 7 to 14 days of my medication. I have my medical info. I have my charger, not only my phone charger, but I also have a charger for my wheelchair in there. And I have food and water, different things that I can eat on the go if I need to. So important documents you want to make sure you have on hand. Your ID. Because honestly, if you're incapacitated, that's what they're gonna use to identify you. It's important to have your insurance cards on you. Because you at some point you're gonna end up at a hospital, even if it's just to get triaged out. And it's important to have your medical information on. Because even if you aren't incapacitated, communication your communication method might be different than the one that the first responders are familiar with. Also, practice your plan. Like anything, a plan is no good if you don't practice it. Run different practice scenarios. You know, Vicky talked about some different disasters that hit North Dakota, and you could use some of those in your practice scenarios, for example. And practice helps people stay calm. Because no matter how level-headed are you when an emergency happens and you're in a time of crisis, your executive function in your brain is going to shut off. So this is why it's very good to have a plan in place so you don't even have to think about it. You can just go at a moment's notice. Uh, tell responders what you need. Um, because a lot of these responders that I've come in contact with, they are more than willing to help out. They just they don't know what they don't know. So it's important to see what they need. And this is where self-advocacy comes in and where you need to explain your disability needs clearly. Prepared communities include everybody, including people with disabilities. So, yeah, once again, my name is Kyle Erickson. I work at the North Dakota Center for Persons with Disabilities. And if there's any comments or questions on this video, I'm sure my contact information will be made available. Thank you.
Okay, is that it, everybody?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me stop recording.